Hey software, welcome to the first unit of Unit 4, the first lesson of Unit 4. This is all about motion and animation, which I'm super excited about, and if we had not been doing remote learning, you guys would have been on and doing this a long time ago, but we're moving at the pace we're moving, and you guys will still get to see some really cool stuff before the end of the year. So to use motion animation, we first need to understand that all animation is just made up of single frames being played really, really, really rapidly. So, like if you guys have ever used a flip book, you see all these pages that nothing is changing on the page, but when you flip them really quickly, you see things moving. I will try and link a YouTube video to some flip books in your weekly work, so you can peruse those if you're interested. And also, any video media that you guys see or use or take is actually not a video. It's a stream of images taken very, very rapidly that you use to produce motion. So when you guys take a video on your phone is actually very rapidly taking a series of images, of pictures, and then simultaneously recording audio so that when you play it back, it looks like you are watching something entirely seamless. And if you guys have ever watched very old movies where technology was not capable of taking pictures so fast, you might notice that it looks kind of choppy or weird. And that's because they're still trying to take simultaneous images. They just can't do it very fast. So for our first animation project in P5, we're just going to try and get a shape and maybe two shapes to move. I want to get this ellipse that is on my screen now to move from the left-hand side of the screen over to the right-hand side of the screen. And for now, I'm just going to worry about that motion. I'm not going to try and make it go back. I'm not going to try and make it bounce. I'm just going to try and make it move. If you have not already, I would recommend you open up the P5 editor so that you too can code along with this. Remember to pause the video whenever you need to. Right now would be a great time to pause and set up an ellipse anywhere on your canvas. I have mine at the X and Y location of 25, 25, right here, and I have it at size 50. Also a reminder that for ellipses, you can just use 3 values. You don't need to use all 4. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I know I want the X of this ellipse to change, because as it goes from left to right, that is a change on the X axis. So if I want something to change, I know that means I probably need a variable. So up top, I'm going to make a variable called, let's call it circx. And I'm going to give circx a starting value of 25, because that's what it's starting now. I'll make a note that this controls the x position of circle 1. Start x at 25. And then in my code, I'm going to take away that x value. I'm going to replace it with circx. Now, if I hit play, nothing should have changed, and that's actually a great thing for me because that means the world as I know it is running correctly. Everything is fine. I didn't mess anything up. Nothing changed. It all works according to plan. So now, to get this to move, we need to remember that there's some special things about setup and draw. Setup only runs once. It's literally getting everything set up for a drawing. So it's creating this canvas. It's making sure we know where circx is starting whenever we hit play. And then in draw, this is drawing repeatedly over and over. So even though we can't see it, every 60 times a second, it is drawing a gray background and then a white circle, and then a gray background and a white circle, gray, white, gray, white, gray, white, over and over and over. And if we could look at it from the side, it would look like a stack of gray backgrounds and white circles getting bigger and bigger and bigger forever. So if I want to create some type of motion here, I can make that happen in my draw function, and I'm going to make that happen by adding things on to my circle variable. So in draw, let's do it after I draw my circle. I'm going to say that it should draw the gray background, it should draw my circle, and then it should take that value of circle x, and it should add 1 to it. And to do this in code, we would write something like circx equals whatever circle x was before plus 1. And this is saying that it's going to take the value of what circle x was, add 1, and save it back to circle x. We can also console log this value so we can see it change as we go. So when I hit play now, I see the numbers changing, and more importantly, I see my circle slowly sliding across the canvas. And eventually we'll see it get to the edge, and then it just disappears. It keeps going. If my canvas was bigger, it'd be going, going, going. Right now it's like going down the hallway of my building. But we got our circle to move, and we see at the bottom circx is ever increasing well past the length of my canvas. So this is really cool and useful to me, but there's some things I want us to change and adjust and see. So if you do not already have this built out, please pause and take a second to build it in your own editor. And then when you come back, we are going to play with this number 1 and figure out exactly what it controls. So right now we saw my circle moves across the screen at kind of a slow to medium pace. I want you to just pause and guess, make a prediction to yourself. What do you think is going to happen to my circle if I'm adding 0.25 to it? And once you have that guess, continue the video, and we can watch our circle now move across our screen at what you'll probably notice is a much different rate than before. And I think that this rate is so different that I'm not even going to wait for it to get to the end. I'm going to pause it, and I'm going to adjust this value again. So it's been 0.25, it's been 1, now I'm going to make it 5. And again, I want you to just pause, think of a prediction. How do you think things are going to change based on changing that to a 5? Now when we hit play, we see it moving really, really quickly across the screen. So I would propose that these things like how fast it's moving, I think that's a good way to talk about speed. So here I might say circ speed as a variable, and then I can give circ speed values like 2, and then instead of adding a static number, I could add my variable for circ speed, which now controls the speed my circle is moving. This idea of having a variable to control speed might seem like a little arbitrary right now, like maybe we don't always need that variable, but once we get into making shapes that bounce, and once we get into making shapes that reset their position and trigger other things happening, we're really going to want to have a variable for speed. So it's a good habit to get into now. So we've animated one circle. I'm going to try and animate another circle just to show you what we would need if I want to move a second circle. So I'm going to make an ellipse. I'm going to make it start much further down my page. Let's keep it at 25. Let's make it also smaller. So I now have this smaller circle. Oh, that's not where I wanted it. Let me swap these two numbers. I wanted it down my page. Okay. So this new circle I've made has an x value of 25, a y value of 100, and a size of 25. When I hit play, we can see it's much smaller than the moving circle, and most importantly, it's not moving yet. If I want this circle to move, and then maybe I want this circle to move at a different rate, I would need all the same things that we did for our first circle, just for our second one. So here, I could put var circ x2 and var circ speed 2, and then I can go in and say that circ x2 is going to start at, let's actually make it start at 10, it'll start further away, and circ speed 2, is that what I called it? Yes, is going to be 1, it'll be a little slower, and then down here, instead of the 25, I can fill in the variable that is holding the x position for circle 2. And to make it mobile, to make it move, I can change that x position for circle 2 by adding my speed. And now when I hit play, I have two moving circles, one that moves at a slower rate than the other. I also just want to call out that animation doesn't always have to mean left, right, or up-down movement, which you're going to be exploring on your own tomorrow during practice. It can also mean changing other things. So maybe I create a rectangle, and I give that rectangle a position. Let's make it kind of at the center. So we'll put it at 200, 200, make it really big. Ooh, that's too big, I don't like that. Move it over a little bit. Move it over a little bit more. Okay, so now I have this large rectangle. Maybe I want the width of this rectangle to slowly shrink over time. I could create a variable called rect width. I'm just going to call it r width. I could give r width a starting value of 300 so that I can plug it in here. And then I could say r width is equal to r width let me spell things right, minus, let's do 1. So now when I hit play, I just unplugged my computer, which hates being alive right now. Now when I hit play, I have my 2 circles that move, and I have a rectangle that gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and eventually it starts going the other way, which is because we're now dealing in negative numbers and it doesn't know how to deal with that. But these are 3 basic ways to animate things. You can, any variable that changes, you can use anywhere in your code to affect anything. You could use it for a color, you could use it for a size, you could use it for a length or a width or a position. Anything that has X and Y variables, so things like images, like text, you can animate those by just creating variables that increment or change. Incrementing and changing variables are what's happening on lines 23, 26, and 29. And that's what we'll be covering in this unit. We're going to get into some cool ways to create motion. And I think you guys are going to enjoy it. So I will leave you with this. Tomorrow you'll have some practice time, and then we'll start getting into cool things like making bounce effects. Enjoy!